Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hadst formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Family Radio now invites you to join us for our Family Bible Reading Fellowship as we read together from God's Word, the Bible. Here to seek the face of Him who alone has been our help in ages past, and who alone is our hope for years to come. Join us now for our Family Bible Reading Fellowship. Chapter 30, Genesis chapter 30. And when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister. And she said to Jacob, "Give me children, or else I will die." And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in God's stead, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" And she said, "Behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, so that I may also have children by her." And she gave him her handmaid Bilhah to wife. And Jacob went in unto her, and Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, "God has judged me, and has also heard my voice, and has given me a son." Therefore she called his name Dan. And Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again, and bore Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, "With the wrestlings of God I have wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed." And she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had quit bearing, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob to wife. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah said, "A troop comes." And she called his name Gad. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, "I am happy, for the daughters will call me blessed." And she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest, and found May apples in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "I pray you, give me some of your son's May apples." And she said to her, "It is a small matter that you have taken my husband, and would you also take my son's May apples?" And Rachel said, "Therefore he shall lie with you tonight for your son's May apples." And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, "You must come in unto me, for I have surely hired you with my son's May apples." And he lay with her that night, and God listened to Leah, and she conceived, and bore Jacob the fifth son. And Leah said, "God has given me my hire, because I have given my maid to my husband." And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and bore Jacob the sixth son. And Leah said, "God has presented me with a good dowry. Now my husband will live with me, because I have borne him 6 sons." And she called his name Zebulun. And afterward she bore a daughter, and called her name Dinah. And God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her, and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son, and she said, "Now God has taken away my reproach." And she called his name Joseph. And she said, "The Lord shall add another son to me." And when Rachel had borne Joseph, it came to pass that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away, so that I may go into my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service which I have done to you." And Laban said to him, "I pray you, if I have found favor in your eyes, stay. For I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake." And he said, "Appoint your wages, and I will give it." And he said to him, "You know how I served you, and how your cattle were with me, for you had little before I came, and it has now increased to a multitude, and the Lord has blessed you since my coming. And now when shall I provide for my own house also?" And he said, "What shall I give you?" And Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flock. I will pass through all the flocks today, taking out all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all of the black sheep among the lambs, and the spotted and the speckled among the goats. And these shall be my hire. so shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, and it shall come for my hire before your face. Every one that is not speckled and spotted amongst the goats, and black among the sheep, shall be counted stolen with me. And Laban said, Behold, let it be according to your word. And that day he took out the he-goats that were striped and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white in it, and all the black from among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Jacob took rods of green poplar, and of the hazel and the chestnut tree, and he peeled white streaks in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters in the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, so that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived in front of the rods, and brought forth striped cattle, speckled and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the striped, and all the black in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and did not put them with the flock of Laban. And when the stronger flocks conceived, Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the flocks in the gutters, so that they might conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were feeble, he did not put them in. And so the feebler ones were Laban's, and the stronger ones were Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had many flocks, and maidservants, and manservants, and camels, and asses. Genesis chapter 31. And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and he has gotten all this glory from that which was our father's. And Jacob saw the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said to Jacob, Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field to his flocks. And he said to them, I see your father's face, that it is not toward me as before. But the God of my father has been with me, and you know that with all my power I have served your father. And your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not allow him to hurt me. If he said, This, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore speckled. And if he said this, the striped shall be your hire, then all the flocks bore striped. And so God has taken away the flocks of your father, and has given them to me. And at the time the cattle conceived, I lifted up my eyes, and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were striped, speckled, and mottled. And the angel of God spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up your eyes, and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle, that they are striped, speckled, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban does to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar, where you vowed a vow to me. Now arise and get out from this land, and return to the land of your kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted strangers by him? For he has sold us, and has also entirely devoured our money. For all the riches which God has taken from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and wives upon camels, and he carried away all his flocks, and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten at Padam Aram, in order to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images which were her father's. And Jacob stole away the heart of Laban the Syrian, in that he did not tell him that he fled. And so he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river, and set his face toward Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the 3rd day that Jacob had fled, and he took his brothers with him, and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and said to him, take heed that you do not speak either good or bad to Jacob. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brothers pitched in Mount Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What have you done that you have stolen away my heart, and carried away my daughters as captives taken with a sword? Why did you flee away secretly, and steal away from me, and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and with songs, and with tabret and with harp? And why have you not allowed me to kiss my sons and my daughters? You have done foolishly in so doing. It is the power of my hand to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, Take heed that you do not speak either good or bad to Jacob. And now you have gone because you longed after your father's house. But why have you stolen my goods? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid. For I said, Perhaps you would take your daughters away from me by force. With whomever you find your gods, let him not live. Before our brothers, choose what is yours with me, and take it to you, for Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tents of the two maidservants, and he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent, and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images, and put them into the camel's saddle, and sat on them. And Laban searched all the tent, but did not find them. But she said to her father, Let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up before you, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but did not find the images. And Jacob was angry, and rebuked Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin, that you have so hotly pursued after me? For you have searched all my stuff. What have you found of all your household stuff? Set it here before my brothers and your brothers, that they may judge between us. I was with you 20 years. Your ewes and she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of your flocks I have not eaten. That which was torn I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it. You required it at my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen at night. So I was in the day, the heat consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. So I have been 20 years in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 for your flocks, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Unless the God of my fathers, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely you would have sent me away empty. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you last night. And Laban answered and said to Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these flocks are my flocks. All that you see is mine. And what can I do this day to those my daughters, or to their children, which they have borne? Now therefore come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be for a witness between you and me. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said to his brothers, Come, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jegar-sahadutha, but Jacob called it Galid. And Laban said, The heap is a witness between you and me this day. Therefore the name of it was called Galid and Mizpah, for he said, The Lord watch between you and me when we are absent from one another. If you shall afflict my daughter, or if you shall take other wives besides my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness between you and me. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold this heap, behold this pillar, which I have cast between you and me. This heap is witness, and this pillar is witness, that I will not pass over the heap to you, and that you shall not pass over this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice on the mountain, and called his brothers to eat bread. And they ate bread and stayed all night in the mountain. And early in the morning Laban rose up, and kissed his sons and his daughters, and blessed them. And Laban departed, and returned to his place. This is Family Bible Reading Fellowship. We are reading together from the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 32. Genesis chapter 32. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, This is God's host. And he called the name of the place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother to the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, So shall you speak to my lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says thus, I have lived with Laban and stayed until now. And I have oxen and asses and flocks and men servants and women servants. And I have sent to tell my lord that I may find grace in your sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to your brother Esau, and also he comes to meet you, and 400 men with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that were with him, the flocks and the herds and the camels, into 2 bands. And he said, If Esau comes to the one company and strikes it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who said to me, Return unto your country and to your kindred, and I will deal with you. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast shown thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I have become 2 bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. For I fear him, lest he come and strike me, and the mother with the children. And thou didst say, I will surely do you good, and make your seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And he lodged there that night, and he took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau his brother, 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, and 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hands of his servants, every drove by themselves. And he said to his servants, Pass over in front of me, and put a space between drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, When Esau my brother meets you, and asks you, saying, To whom do you belong, and where do you go, and to whom do these before you belong? Then you shall say, Your servant Jacob. It is a present sent to my lord Esau. And behold, he also is behind us. And so he commanded the second and the third and all that followed, the drove, saying, In this way ye shall speak to Esau when you find him. And moreover you shall say, Behold, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me, and afterward I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. And so the present went over before him, and he himself lodged that night in the company. And he rose up that night, and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them, and set them over the brook, and sent over what he had. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled there with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he did not prevail against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh. And the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaks. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is your name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For like a prince you have power with God and with men, and have prevailed. And Jacob asked and said, I pray thee, tell me thy name. And he said, Why is it that you ask after my name? And he blessed him there, and Jacob called the name of the place Peniel. For I have seen God's face here face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Penuel, the sun rose upon him, and he limped upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel do not eat of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh until this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew that shrank. Chapter 33. Genesis chapter 33. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and 400 men with him. And he divided the children unto Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto 2 handmaids, and he put the handmaids and their children first, and Leah and her children afterward, and Rachel and Joseph last. And he passed over in front of them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell upon his neck, and kissed him. And they wept. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw the women and the children, and said, Who are these with you? And he said, The children which God has graciously given your servant. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also and her children came near, and bowed themselves. And afterward Joseph came near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he asked, What do you mean by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. And Esau says, I have enough, my brother, keep what you have yourself. And Jacob said, No, I pray you, if now I have found grace in your sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore have I seen your face as though I had seen the face of God, and you were pleased with me. I pray you, take my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it, and he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before you. And he said to him, My Lord knows that the children are tender, and the flocks and the herds with young are with me. And if the men should overdrive them one day, all the flocks will die. I pray you, let my Lord pass over before his servants, and I will lead on softly according as the flocks that go before me and the children are able to endure, until I come to my Lord, to Seir. And Esau said, Let me now leave with you some of the folks that are with me. And he said, Why then? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. And so Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him a house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram. And he pitched his tent in front of the city, and he bought a piece of field there, where he had spread his tent, at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar, and he called it Eliel Ohi Israel. Chapter 34. Genesis chapter 34. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she bore unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul did cleave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the girl, and spoke kindly to the girl. And Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, Get me this girl for a wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they had come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard, and the men were grieved, and they were very angry, because he had done folly in Israel in lying with the daughter of Jacob. Now this thing ought not to be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. I pray you give her to him for a wife. And you make marriages with us, giving your daughters to us, and taking our daughters unto you. And you shall live with us, and the land shall be before you. Live and trade in it, and get possessions in it. And Shechem said to his father and to his brother, Let me find grace in your eyes, and whatever you shall say unto me I will give. Heap upon me ever so much price and dowry, and I will give according as you shall say unto me. But give me the girl for a wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father, speaking with deceit, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. And they said to them, We cannot do this thing, to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us. But in this we will agree with you, if you will be as we are, let every male of you be circumcised, then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will live with you, and we will become one people. But if you will not listen to us to be circumcised, then we will take our daughter, and we will go. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son, and the young man did not hesitate to do the thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came to the gate of the city and talked with the men of the city, saying, These men are at peace with us. Therefore let them live in the land and trade in it. For the land, behold, is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition will the men agree to live with us, to be one people, if every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every animal of theirs be ours? Only let us agree with them, and they will live with us. And all that went out of the gate of the city listened to Hamor and Shechem his son, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of his city. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took each man his sword, and came upon the city boldly, and killed all the males. And they killed Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain, and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. And they took their sheep, and their oxen, and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones, and their wives they took captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house.
And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, Ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me, and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, Should he deal with our sister as with an harlot?
This has been Family Bible Reading Fellowship. Each day at this time, we invite you to join with us and read together from God's Word, the Bible, as we unite our hearts in our Family Bible Reading Fellowship.